my side. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm very glad to give you another session today. I really hope you had already the chance to join some of the sessions of my colleagues and learned a lot of interesting content. So I will tell you a little bit more about, basically where, if you decide to join SAP, where you could work in the DACH region, so meaning in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and beyond. I think every of the more than 100,000 employees has a very unique story how we ended up at SAP. I also have my own story, how it happened. And I would like to share that a little bit with you so that you also get a little bit of an understanding on what is it like. I mean, if you join a company like SAP and how basically over the years, I'm with SAP since 2005, so since quite some time, how basically your career and the different areas and locations where you can work are evolved and where you have an opportunity to work at SAP. So as I said, everybody has his or her own story, and I would like to start with a short video. There will be two videos in my presentation to make it a bit more entertaining. So how do people end up at SAP? Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. So let's see what they say about it.
Excuse me? Do you work here?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. I grew up loving video games. My dad was like, play sports. But my mom was like, maybe you can do something with that. So I studied computer science, and then after college, I got a job at SAP.
Who are you talking to?
And my friends were like, SAP? And I was like, yeah, SAP.
I was just gonna ask you, is this...
I started out as a UX designer, but then I wanted to change, and my mentor was like, you should try a developer role. And my manager was like,
cool. Go ahead.
So now the code I wrote helped build a self-driving electric car. And my work bestie sees the code.
Hey!
And she's like,
You know, other people can use that.
so we called Tanaka-san in Tokyo, and she's like,
Do you know what time is it in Tokyo right now?
so we called Tanaka-san back, and she's like,
Yeah, we can definitely use this.
and before I knew it, all these talented developers, project managers, engineers, consultants, our customers, and even this kid, all working on the code together, making it better, using it to do things like reducing carbon footprints, AI, and helping distribute vaccines all over the world. Anyway, you should totally get a job here.
Yeah, I did. Today's my first day. I was just gonna ask you, is this the right entrance?
So how did you hear about SAP?
It's a funny story.
Yeah, so that's, I think, pretty normal. I mean, that you start at a certain point, you apply for a position, and then out of that develops like a career, and you, like in my case, after 16 years, you're still with the company, and you've done a lot of very interesting different things. And I would like to take you a little bit on a journey to make it a little bit more private, so that you have a little bit of an understanding how one out of more than 100,000 career paths and at SAP can look like. So how did I end up at SAP? So in 2004, to give you a little bit of background, I studied in Berlin, and then I got a scholarship and studied in the US and worked for a while in New York in a startup company. And then at a certain point, I had to go back to Germany because my visa expired. And I was sitting in an airplane flying back to Germany and had not really an idea what my next job or my career would look like. And and then what I did, I started applying for jobs. Some of you who may be at the end of your education, you will know that, or very soon you will be in that situation. So I didn't know anybody at SAP. It was not that I had some friends or relatives or family members working at SAP. It's also in some cases a very good path to get to know SAP. But in my case, it was basically the traditional way via a job website. I don't know if it was Stepstone or any other one. I just picked one example. And I looked through the different kind of available job positions at SAP, and I found out that this role, which was mentioned there, was really a good fit to my educational and professional background. So I studied business communication, so I'm not an IT person. And also I worked for quite some time during my studies in the telecommunication industry. So the first job I landed at SAP was a marketing manager position for the telecommunication area. So in March 2005, I signed a contract with SAP and moved to Heidelberg. SAP is headquartered in Walldorf, which is between Heidelberg and Karlsruhe. So that was basically how my journey at SAP began. And in the next couple of years, 3 years to be honest, to be precise, I worked in 2 different roles in marketing and internal communications at SAP. First of all, as I said, I had a background in the telecommunication industry, so that's how I started. And then after that, after like a year, I moved into an internal communication role for those 2 gentlemen. So you probably don't know them, but the upper right-hand person, Jim Snabe, he was a few years ago the CEO or one of the co-CEOs of SAP, now moved to like a supervisory board position at Siemens. And the other gentleman is Michael Kleinemeier, also a board member who just left SAP 2 years ago to retire. So I had really the pleasure as a relatively young person to work for those 2 gentlemen who really helped me, I mean, to develop my skills and to really use my skills in a professional setup. So that was really a great experience. And then at a certain point, I said, okay, I would really like to have the opportunity, first of all, to get out of Walldorf and the headquarters and to see a little bit more of the world and what SAP has to offer, and also to become a little bit closer to customers. So that's why I said, okay, now it's the time to make a change and a career step. And I moved into a consulting role. So I worked for several years in the business consulting area of SAP. If you're interested, there was another session earlier today, and you can see the recording then and afterwards, where young consultants explain basically how they ended up at that specific area of SAP. And I was doing that for several years, worked in very interesting projects worldwide at customers in many different cities. I mean, I had really the urge to get out of Germany and see the world. So I worked for a long time in the customer project in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam. I worked in Cairo. I worked in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. I worked in Moscow, in Barcelona. So really, I had a great opportunity to experience that and to really work in very different projects. I did a fellowship for half a year, which is something SAP offers to interested colleagues, and could step out of my consulting position and worked in the government relations department here in Berlin, where I'm based, and also in Brussels. And in parallel, I was doing an MBA. That was also something SAP offered me. I really had the urge to continue my education, to learn more, not only within my job, but also in a formal way. And I applied at a university in Berlin and did my MBA as a part-time MBA. SAP sponsored that MBA, so that was really great. And so yeah, then I continued working in consulting for, as I said, several years. And then at a certain point, my personal situation changed, so I became a father. And then I said, okay, now it's time to also switch my position at SAP to be less on the road and traveling as much as before. And I think in a lot of companies, you would have to leave the company if you want to make that step. If you work in a traditional consulting company, there are not that many options to move to another position. But at SAP, there was an opportunity. So I applied again internally and got a job, which I'm still holding. So I became part of the Sub-University Alliances team. So I'm now responsible for the academic relationship to our partner we have in my case in the DACH region, so in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. I started also in that position in a role where I was only responsible for like a certain part of Germany. So I was dealing with a lot of university partners and academic partners in the eastern part of Germany. And then 1.5 years ago, I was kind of promoted to a director's position, and now I'm responsible for the whole DACH region. So this is, I think, they're very typical for SAP. So you are really moving forward, and you do different activities. That also depends on your own personal situation and also your desire, how you would like to continue your career. So that's where I am at the moment. So, but the question, obviously, and the title of the whole presentation was, and I saw there are already some questions in the chat. So I will take a look at that at the end of the presentation to not move around too much in the presentation. So, but the question is like, in which offices can you actually work? I mean, there's obviously the headquarters, as I said, in Walldorf, but that's only one out of many offices we have. So I would like to show you a very short video to highlight a little bit like how does it look like if you work in an office outside of headquarters. So here's another short video for you.
Welcome to our SAP offices. With locations in more than 78 countries, we're probably closer than you think. At SAP, collaboration is fostered in our smart working environments. Whether you have a customer meeting in Shanghai or need to take a seaside call in Newport Beach, our offices come equipped to help you get the job done. Thirsty? Why not grab a drink at one of our convenient coffee corners? Hungry? No problem. Some of our locations feature cafeterias where subsidized meals may be purchased. We know our people work hard, which is why many of our offices come with spaces designed to support a healthy, sustainable lifestyle. These can include amenities such as fitness centers, pool tables, foosball, arcade cabinets, and more. Welcome to a space where you can innovate the future. Welcome to Life at SAP.
So as you can see, there is a variety of offices available where you can basically work at SAP. So like a short quiz and to use the chat function. So what do you think? How many SAP offices are there worldwide? So in how many cities or towns is SAP active? Take a guess. Yeah, I see 180, 100, 200, 150. Yeah, you're good. You're good. So it is so we have 206 locations. I put them all on the global map here so that you have a little bit of an understanding on where we are present. Obviously, there are some parts in the world where we are not active. So parts of Russia and where it's really cold and not that many people live there. But in, let's say, the populated areas of the world, I mean, we have offices available. And this is, I think, true for a lot of companies, but at SAP, you really have a chance if you decide for personal reasons, if you say, I would really like to maybe see another country or another location to really move around. I mean, we have a very flexible work environment that was even elevated to the level that we have the so-called Pledge to Flex initiative, which was introduced by the board this year, so that at the end, you don't really have to work in any office anymore. So obviously we have 206 locations where you can sit as an employee and you can work from there. But technically, it's also possible to work from any location in the world. Obviously, you need to have good internet access to be able to join the network and to collaborate with your colleagues. But besides that, I think there's a lot of flexibility also for your private situation. As I said, my life really changed when I became a father, so I really wanted to do another kind of job than beforehand. And the same applies to a colleague who are close to retirement or who have other personal obligations. So, but this is really something where I would say that SAP is really doing a great job in accommodating the needs of people and not forcing them out of the company so that you have to leave the company only because your life situation has changed. So this is like the overview. So 78 countries, 206 locations. I've put them also here like a little bit in the word cloud to give you a little bit of a indication where we are present. So there are some obviously very big offices like Walldorf, like Palo Alto, like Newtown Square, Also by now, locations like Berlin, where a lot of people work, but we also have very small locations. So I think the smallest one in Germany is in Bonn, where only a few people work, and the biggest one is in Walldorf, where we have, together with St. Leon Roth, which is right next to Walldorf, we have over 20,000 employees working. So it depends a little bit also on your preferences. If you say, I want to work more in like a really big location with a lot of people, with a lot of teams and so on, there are locations existing where you can do that. Also, if you say, I would like to stay more in a smaller location where it's a little bit more informal, where I know all my colleagues, then there are also options available. So this is like the global perspective. How does it look like for the DACH region? So meaning Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. As I just said, in Germany we have around 224,000 employees. So SAP in total has 105,000 at the moment. So as you can see, like almost 25% of the, or more than 25% of the employees work in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. So Germany, the smallest one, as I said, is in Bonn with 13 employees, and Walldorf. And on that, you have to also add St. Leon Roth, which is, as I said, right next to it. You have almost 14,000 employees. So very different. It's also very different working style and environment, but you can basically choose between those locations. In Austria, we have a little bit more than 500 employees. So the smallest location there is in Linz. The biggest one is in Vienna. And in Switzerland, we have around 850 employees with 47 in Biel, which is the smallest one, and over 600 in Zurich. Also here, you can see where are we present. I think we have a pretty good coverage all over Germany and Austria and Switzerland. With the different locations pointed out here. So my location, as I said, I'm based in Berlin. Berlin by now is really a growing location when it comes to employees. And after several years working in the headquarters, when I moved to Berlin, it was a relatively small location with only limited areas available here, but by now we have almost every function available and positioned here also in Berlin. Sometimes only very few people, not like a whole team, but as I said, in this very virtual environment where you can work with teams from all over the world, basically, it doesn't really make a difference where you are. So in my case, for example, I'm the only person in my team based here in Berlin. My co-workers, they work a lot in Walldorf and in other cities worldwide. So we are a truly global team, and that applies to many departments at SAP. So this is my location where I'm sitting at the moment. I'm in the office today, which at the moment during COVID doesn't happen that often, but I thought maybe today I'm taking the chance and go to the office. So that's where I'm sitting when I'm going to the office here in Berlin. We have several locations by now in Berlin. And to give you a little bit like an impression, how does it look like? I mean, what happens normally when we are not in COVID times? I mean, there's also, in that applies to each and every location, there's a lot of also interaction going on. So here in Berlin, we have a lot of activities, be it something like the Christmas or summer party, be it like activities specifically for students, or the colleagues you see here in the middle who do like stand-up paddling. That's like a regular offering for students who work here at SAP in Berlin and Potsdam to come together to have activities together and so on. So there's a lot of options available to work at SAP. And with that, I would like to take a look at your questions and really encourage you to ask additional questions you might have. So a question was, will we get to recordings? I think that was mentioned hopefully in every session. So yes, each session is recorded and will be made available afterwards. So feel free to listen in also to those sessions you have missed. And we really hope that that was an interesting input for you. We have a few minutes to go, so I would not start immediately with the poll, but maybe we can do that already in parallel. But are there any questions you have regarding working at SAP and how the different location work like? Is it easy to relocate? I would say in general it is. I mean, obviously it always depends a little bit on the position you are applying for. But if you take a look at us already at the external career portal, and even more so if once you are part of the SAP family, there are a lot of options available to move to other locations. So that's possible and can be done. It's also supported by the company. So yeah, so I would say it's possible. Are there a lot of jobs in English? Yeah, the main and the main language you should be able to speak at least to a certain level. I mean, I think it depends a little bit on the position. If you have, let's say, a consulting or sales role in Germany, I think it's not that important to be fluent in English, but I think as we are also want to collaborate on a global basis, and as I said, I mean, in some companies they say it's that they are international, but I really have to say at SAP it's really the case. So English is, I would say, a prerequisite. You should be able to speak. Also, most of the global activities like all hand meetings and so on, they are executed in English. So a good understanding of English, I would say, is really helpful also to make sure that you also use the positive side, like really dealing and collaborating with colleagues from all over the world. So I would say a certain level of English is required. But there are also options available to learn English better. And I think if you once you go in a certain role, and if you start working in projects, I think your English will definitely improve. So don't worry. Other question is, you said that some of your team members work in other cities. Is it possible to join them for some months? Could you go to another country for a special time? As I said, I was part of that fellowship program. I mentioned it at the beginning. I worked for half a year in a completely different department. I said, okay, I would like to get out of my consulting role after being in it for several years. And I applied for that. I was accepted. So my manager basically supported that fellowship. And in that, I worked for half a year in a totally different department. And part of that was also that I worked in the office, the SAP office in Brussels, which was not my normal location. So I would say it's definitely possible. If you have a desire to see the world and travel the world, I think you can do it at SAP, especially in jobs like consulting and so on. But also, if you want to relocate permanently, that's also an option. Other question, I would like to stay there, but I would like to apply for a job in Waldorf or even the US. You said it doesn't really matter where you're based. What would be the way to go? I think in most job openings you see at the moment on the SAP career portal, it's not even mentioned anymore that like Waldorf or any other location is a prerequisite. So usually it says that any location within Germany or even beyond is possible. And then obviously it depends a little bit on the team and also kind of the role you have. But as I said, like this whole Pledge to Flex initiative is really something where by now, and I think Corona really even accelerated that process. The teams now work even more virtually than they did already before. I mean, even before Corona, I had calls all the time, so that was not a problem. Okay, I want to apply for SAP internship program next year, which will probably be in 2023. I'm a bit confused. Can I get in from a country where SAP doesn't have any office? I mean, I would say to start like in an internship position without having any kind of connection to local colleagues, it makes it not as interesting, because then obviously it's fully virtual and you don't have a chance to meet people and colleagues in person. But I think it should be possible. But ideally, I would say if you plan to do an internship, maybe take a look at if there's no office in in your country, maybe in a neighboring country, or I think there's also options available maybe to do an internship then, let's say in the headquarters or any other bigger location worldwide. So to answer it shortly, yes, I think it should be even possible to do it virtually, but I think to really get a full understanding on who we are and what we do and how it is to work at SAP, I would definitely recommend to do it in a location, at least for a certain period of time. Is it possible to get accepted in SAP if you have a limited German? Definitely yes. I mean, again, it depends on the position. If you are supposed to deal with customers, and let's say here in Germany, then obviously speaking German would be needed. But I know of a lot of colleagues also here in Berlin and other locations in other roles, like be it like internal roles, be it in development roles who don't speak German, and that's not a problem. That's why I think it's also for the daily life and to really get to know each other better. It's also really important that you should speak to a certain level English when you join SAP. Good. Maybe one more question if there's any. Otherwise, yeah, I think I answered hopefully most of them. So with that, yeah, I would like to thank you very much for your time. There are several more sessions today, and as said, they will all be recorded and made available afterwards. So you can also listen to those you missed today. And I wish you, yeah, a lot of fun in the remaining sessions and also in your studies. And hopefully we created some interest for SAP, and would be nice to see you or some of you in a working student position, an internship position, or maybe as a new colleague in the future. So have a great day and